The ship did not ask permission before adjusting gravity. It never did. One moment his boots felt like boots, the next they felt like an opinion the floor disagreed with. He stumbled forward, caught himself on a railing that pulsed faintly as if annoyed at being touched, and sighed. "Of course," he muttered. "Now the hallway is judging me." A pair of alien guards watched him with synchronized stillness. They looked human enough at first glance, 2 arms, 2 legs, symmetrical faces. But the long ears extending back from their heads gave them a permanently alert, almost offended look, as if the universe was constantly whispering gossip behind them. Their armor was grown, not built, faint veins glowing under the surface, responding to proximity and threat levels and possibly sarcasm. He suspected sarcasm registered as a low-level irritant. "Is the floor always like this?" he asked, "or did I offend it personally?" Neither guard replied. One tilted her head by exactly 3 degrees, which he had learned was either a sign of contemplation or a polite warning that further commentary would be logged somewhere unpleasant. He adjusted his jacket, the last piece of earth-issue fabric on a ship that considered fabric an inefficient life choice, and continued walking. The corridor curved ahead of him, not architecturally but biologically, like the inside of something that had once been alive and still held a grudge about it. Light flowed rather than shone, responding to movement, heartbeat, and he was fairly sure mood. When he slowed, the glow dimmed. When he muttered, it flickered. "Don't take it personally," he told the walls. "I'm like this everywhere." They reached the antechamber without ceremony. The space widened, gravity settled into something negotiable, and the air grew cooler, sharper, as if filtered through intent rather than machinery. This was as close as the ship ever came to clearing its throat. He knew who waited beyond the inner threshold. Everyone did. Even the ship knew, especially the ship. The alien queen did not rise when he entered. She did not need to. She sat upon a structure that was technically not a throne because her people did not use that word, but everyone else did because denying it felt dishonest. It grew from the floor in elegant curves, shaped to her posture, responding to her neural patterns, reinforcing her authority in ways no human chair ever could. The ship adored her, that much was obvious. She looked human in the way a blade looks like a mirror if you don't touch it. Her features were sharp, controlled, timeless. Her skin held a faint, pearlescent undertone, not glowing, just remembering light. And her ears, long, graceful, swept back from her head, were adorned with thin bands of metal etched with symbols that shifted slowly, rewriting themselves as if reality were still editing its notes. Her eyes fixed on him with practiced patience. "You are late," she said. He checked the empty air beside his wrist, where a watch would have been if the ship hadn't politely dissolved it on arrival. "Respectfully, Your Majesty, your hallway changed gravity twice and tried to trip me. I feel this should count as shared responsibility." Silence rippled through the chamber. Advisors stood along the curved walls, some human-shaped, some very much not, all unified by the collective decision to pretend this exchange was not happening. The queen's gaze sharpened. "Time," she said, "is constant aboard my vessel." "Then it's brave of it to stand so close to you," he replied. "I'd be intimidated." A murmur passed through the room before anyone could stop it. He saw a few long ears twitch. One advisor coughed, which sounded like glass deciding not to break. The queen did not smile. She rarely did. But something in her posture shifted, subtle and dangerous, like a chess piece realizing it could be a knife. "You continue to mistake tolerance for invitation," she said. He inclined his head, the diplomatic angle drilled into him during training. "I assure you I mistake many things. It's one of my most consistent traits." She rose then, smoothly, without effort, the throne reshaping itself behind her as if relieved of duty. When she stood, the room recalibrated. The air thickened. Even the light seemed to hold its breath. "You were brought here," she said, "to represent your species, to listen, to observe, not to provoke." "Ah," he said, "see, that's where the confusion comes in. On Earth, listening and provoking are often the same activity." Her eyes narrowed. "Your humor is ill-timed." "I find it works best when everyone is uncomfortable," he said. "Otherwise, it's just small talk." From the edge of the chamber, someone laughed. The sound was soft, surprised, quickly stifled. Every head turned. Including the queen's. Her daughter stood partially concealed behind a cluster of bioorganic consoles that hummed with restrained energy. She was younger, though not young by human standards, her presence lighter, less rigid, as if gravity treated her as a suggestion rather than a law. She shared her mother's long ears and sharp features, but where the queen's expression was carved from certainty, the daughter's was alive with curiosity, amusement, and something dangerously close to warmth. "I'm sorry," the daughter said quickly, though her eyes sparkled. "It was unexpected." The queen said nothing for a long moment. The ship's systems adjusted again, barely perceptible, a nervous habit. "You may leave," the queen said to her daughter without turning. The daughter hesitated, just a fraction too long. "Yes, mother," she said and withdrew, casting one last glance at the human envoy. He offered her a small, apologetic shrug, the universal gesture of "this is probably my fault." When she was gone, the chamber felt colder. "You see," the queen said, "even my patience has limits." He nodded. "So I've been told." Repeatedly, usually right before someone throws me out of somewhere. Her gaze hardened. "That," she said, "can be arranged." The words hung between them, heavy with implication. Advisors shifted. Data streams flickered along the walls, recalculating probabilities that did not favor him. He considered backing down, truly, sincerely, for almost a full second. Then he spoke. "With respect," he said. Your daughter laughed. The chamber went very still. "That," the queen said softly, "is not your concern." "Maybe not," he replied. "But it's hard not to notice when someone hears a joke for the first time in a room full of people who forgot what they sound like." One advisor made a strangled noise. Another pretended to study the floor, which obligingly produced a slow-moving pattern of lights. "You presume too much," the queen said. "I'm human," he said. "It's practically a survival trait." She descended the last step separating them, close enough now that he could feel the faint hum of the energy field surrounding her, not a shield exactly, but an assertion. Her long ears angled back slightly, a sign he had learned through painful trial and error meant danger. "You are no longer useful," she said. "Your presence has become disruptive." He smiled, thin and tired. "I get that a lot too." "Enough," she said. "Remove him." The guards moved instantly. The ship complied, corridors already reconfiguring, airlocks waking from dormancy. Somewhere deep within the vessel, a launch protocol stretched like a cat preparing to misbehave. As the guards took his arms, he glanced once more toward the place where the daughter had stood. "Tell her," he said, not resisting, "that I'm sorry about the laugh. I didn't mean to start a diplomatic incident." No one answered. The ship adjusted gravity again, just slightly, as if amused. They did not hurry him, which somehow made it worse. The guards walked at a steady, ceremonial pace, as if escorting him to an honor rather than an airlock. The ship's corridors reshaped themselves ahead of them, doors opening before being asked, floors smoothing out as though eager to assist in his removal. Gravity stayed polite now, perfectly balanced, like it wanted to make sure he couldn't complain about the process later. "Well," he said, glancing left and right, "this is the nicest walk I've ever had while being expelled from somewhere." No response. The guard's long ears were angled backward, a configuration he had learned meant active duty rather than conversation. He decided not to test the distinction. They passed a cluster of living consoles that hummed softly, data flowing like bioluminescent veins across their surfaces. He caught a glimpse of his own profile reflected in one, slightly distorted, elongated, the ship's way of editorializing. He looked tired. He felt tired. Diplomacy, he had learned, was mostly the art of standing very still while powerful people decided whether or not to throw you into space. "So," he continued because silence made him itch, "do I get a receipt for this, or is it more of a one-way experience?" One guard adjusted her grip, not tighter, just firmer, as if reassuring herself that yes, he was still there and still the problem. They reached the outer transit ring. The air felt different here, thinner, more deliberate. The ship's consciousness brushed against his thoughts, not invasive, just curious, like a large animal deciding whether to remember him. The ring pulsed once, twice, recognizing authority that was not his. The airlock waited ahead. He stopped walking. The guards halted automatically, training overriding momentum. "Before we do this," he said, "I'd like to point out that on my planet, this is generally considered an extreme response to sarcasm." The nearer guard turned her head slightly. "You were not expelled for sarcasm." "Oh," he said. "That's a relief. I'd hate to think I died for something so trivial." You were expelled, the guard said, for destabilizing a closed hierarchy. He blinked. Wow, I usually just destabilize meetings. The guard did not rise to the bait, but the ship did. The lights flickered faintly, amused or annoyed, he couldn't tell which. The airlock opened with a sound like a held breath being released. Inside waited a pod, compact, smooth, unmistakably designed by beings who believed comfort was optional and dignity was negotiable. The interior molded itself into a seated position that suggested the designer had studied humans exclusively through second-hand descriptions. He stared at it. Let me guess, he said, no seatbelt. The pod will deliver you safely, the guard said. That's not a no. They guided him inside. The surface shifted under his weight, firming up reluctantly like it resented accommodating him. The hatch began to close. Hey, he said quickly. Just checking, does this thing have a return function, or is it more of a good luck with the void situation? The hatch paused just a fraction. The guard looked at him, then really looked at him, ears flicking forward for a brief, unguarded moment. You are not expected to return, she said. Fair, he replied. I've had worse performance reviews. The hatch sealed. The pod detached with a gentle lurch, far gentler than the situation warranted. For a heartbeat, nothing happened. Then the stars shifted, the ship receded, and the universe reasserted itself with all the enthusiasm of a system that had never agreed to be fair. He exhaled slowly. Well, he said to no one, this escalated. The pod's interface lit up, symbols flowing across the surface like a living language deciding how much effort to invest in him. A translation flickered into place. Status function. Trajectory non-optimal. Passenger unauthorized. Rude, he muttered. The pod began its slow drift away from the flagship, engines idling, conserving energy like a sulking animal. He leaned back, hands folded, staring at the stars. Somewhere behind him, an empire continued without him. Somewhere ahead, probability waited with a grin. Then the pod shuddered. Ah, he said, there it is. The shudder became a tremor. The interface flashed, symbols scrambling. Status interrupted. External command detected. He frowned. That's new. The pod rotated, not away from the ship but toward it. Engines flared, confused but obedient. No, no, he said, pressing a hand against the surface as if it could hear him better that way. We had an understanding. The ship loomed larger in the viewport. He could see movement along its hull, energy patterns shifting rapidly like nerves firing. Then a voice filled the pod, familiar, unmistakable. Stop the launch. The pod froze mid-correction, his eyebrows shot up. Huh. The voice came again, clearer now, edged with urgency and something dangerously close to panic. If he goes, the daughter said, I go too. Silence followed, not empty silence, loaded silence, the kind that bent systems around it. The pod's interface flickered wildly. Status, conflict. Primary authority, valid. Secondary authority, valid. Resolution pending. Oh, he said softly, this is bad, this is very bad. The ship did not know what to do, that much was obvious. Its intelligence had been grown to obey, to protect, to maintain hierarchy. It had not been designed for rebellion, especially not from within the royal genome. The pod drifted, suspended between decisions. Inside the ship, alarms did not sound. Instead, corridors locked, then unlocked, then reconsidered. Advisors spoke in rapid bursts. Systems recalculated outcomes they had never been asked to imagine. In the central chamber, the queen stood very still. What did you say? She asked. Her daughter did not back down. She stepped forward into the open space, ears flared, posture rigid with resolve. If he is expelled, she said, I will leave with him. A murmur rippled through the court, sharp and disbelieving. Someone laughed nervously and immediately regretted it. You will do no such thing, the queen said. Then he stays, the daughter replied. The queen's gaze flicked briefly toward the data streams scrolling along the walls. The ship's systems hesitated again, caught between genetic authority and direct command. This is not affection, the queen said. This is novelty, it will pass. Then let it pass naturally, the daughter said, not through vacuum. The queen's long ears angled back, a sign the room recognized instantly. Tension spiked. You would defy me, the queen said, for a human. The daughter's voice softened just a little, for a person. The words landed harder than any insult. In the pod, the human envoy watched the ship grow larger again, then stop, then hold. Well, he said, staring at the stars reflected faintly on the viewport, Guess I should have kept my mouth shut after all. The pod did not answer. It was too busy learning what doubt felt like. The ship did something it had never done before. It waited, not because it was ordered to, not because a protocol demanded it. It waited because two commands of equal authority existed in opposition, and somewhere deep in its living core, a question had formed that no line of code or grown synapse could immediately resolve. In the suspended pod, the human felt the shift before he understood it. The subtle hum of engines faded into a thoughtful silence. The stars outside stopped sliding. Everything held as if the universe itself had leaned back and crossed its arms. Well, he said, this is new. The pod interface pulsed once. Status hold. Pause undefined. Story of my life, he muttered. Inside the ship, the court was anything but quiet. The queen stood at the center of the chamber, still as a carved monument, her long ears angled back, her gaze locked on her daughter. Around them, advisors whispered in tight, urgent clusters, their voices overlapping in anxious harmony. Data streams crawled along the walls, probabilities fracturing and reforming, futures branching into versions no one liked. You are confusing impulse with principle, the queen said, her voice low, precise. Her daughter did not raise her voice. She didn't need to. You are confusing control with stability. A ripple of unease spread through the chamber. Someone inhaled sharply. Someone else pretended to be deeply interested in a glowing console that was very clearly displaying nothing helpful. The queen took a step forward. The floor reshaped itself to support her, reinforcing her presence, amplifying it. You would abandon your people, she said, for an outsider who has disrupted our court, insulted our customs, and destabilized our hierarchy with jokes. The daughter's lips twitched despite herself. To be fair, the jokes were only mildly destabilizing. Enough, the queen snapped. The daughter straightened. No. The word landed with a weight that silenced the chamber completely. The queen stared at her, truly stared, as if seeing not her child, not her heir, but a variable she had failed to account for. You forget who you are, the queen said. No, the daughter replied. I remember. She gestured toward the walls, the ship, the vast, living empire wrapped around them. We claim to rule through wisdom, through balance, through understanding, and yet the moment something unfamiliar challenges us, we eject it into the void. The queen's jaw tightened. This is governance. This is fear, the daughter said quietly. The ship trembled just a little. In the pod, the human felt it through the seat, through his bones. That can't be good, he said. The interface flickered again. Status, internal dissonance. Recommendation, mediation. He blinked. You do mediation now. The pod did not answer, but it rotated slightly, aligning itself with a different section of the ship. Doors began to open where none should have, corridors unfolding like a compromise no one had planned. Inside the chamber, an advisor finally stepped forward, ears quivering with barely contained panic. Your Majesty, he said, the ship is adapting. The queen's eyes flicked toward the walls, then back to her daughter. Call it to order. I didn't command it, the daughter said. It's listening. That more than anything shook the queen. She turned away, pacing once, slow and deliberate. The throne behind her shifted restlessly, uncertain whether to reclaim her. You have placed us at risk, the queen said. The human's presence has already altered internal dynamics. Good, the daughter said. They needed altering. The queen stopped. You speak as if you believe this is sustainable. I believe stagnation isn't, the daughter replied. Silence stretched. Then, unexpectedly, the queen laughed. It was not loud. It was not warm, but it was real. So, she said, turning back, this is what he's done. The daughter blinked. What? He has taught you to defy me, the queen said. The daughter shook her head. No, he reminded me that I could. The queen studied her for a long moment, then she lifted a hand. Return the pod, she said. Gasps echoed through the chamber. In the pod, the human felt motion resume, smooth and controlled. The ship drew him back like a held breath finally released. Oh, he said, I'm going to regret this, aren't I? The pod docked without ceremony. The hatch opened. He stepped out, boots meeting the floor with a firmness that felt almost welcoming. Guards stood nearby, tense but unmoving, clearly unsure whether they were supposed to escort him somewhere or apologize. He looked around. So, he said, am I still being expelled, or are we renegotiating the terms of my existence? No one answered immediately, then the daughter stepped forward. You're back, she said, relief flashing across her face before she masked it with composure. Temporarily, he said. I've been invited back before, it rarely ends well. The queen descended from her position, stopping a few steps away from him. Up close, her presence was overwhelming, authority woven into every breath. You have caused disruption, she said. He nodded. That's fair. You have challenged tradition, she continued. Also fair. You have influenced my daughter. He hesitated. That wasn't intentional. I believe you, the queen said. That surprised him. However, she went on, you have also revealed a fault line I chose not to see. The advisors shifted nervously. This was not how these conversations usually went. You may stay, the queen said. The chamber erupted in quiet shock. But she added, not as a protected guest, not as an envoy, you will remain under observation. He considered this, so